There's a strange paradox that plays out in the psychology of modern relationships. It's one that most men experience, but very few ever understand until it's too late. A man meets a woman. She's charming, responsive, maybe even flirtatious. There's chemistry. He gets excited. He starts to pursue, to invest, to show interest, texting consistently, making plans, expressing care. And then, without warning, something shifts. Her responses get colder. Her presence, once warm and curious, turns distant and vague. And the man, confused, hurt, questioning his worth, starts to spiral. He wonders, was I too much? Did I do something wrong? Why is she pulling away now that I started caring more? But here's the bitter truth. You didn't do something wrong. You just did something common. You gave her control. You see, most women don't consciously ask for control in a relationship. But unconsciously, it's intoxicating. The moment a man starts proving his worth through his actions, through excessive pursuit, unearned validation, and emotional exposure, he flips the power dynamic on its head. What was once a balanced dance between two sovereign people becomes a one-sided performance. She's now the observer, the evaluator, the judge of his worth, and he's the performer, hoping to win her approval. Now here's where it gets dangerous. Even if she initially liked you, even if she was genuinely interested, once she feels that she has you wrapped around her finger, the emotional excitement fades, because what she craves isn't always love. Often it's leverage, influence, the subtle thrill of knowing that someone else's emotions hinge on her behavior. That if she texts, he smiles. If she withholds, he suffers. Power is a drug, and once a woman tastes it, especially over a man who was once mysterious, composed, or hard to read, she'll subconsciously chase more of it. Not because she's manipulative, but because validation, especially from someone who was once aloof, is addictive. It begins subtly. You send a thoughtful message. She reads it, smiles, but doesn't reply for hours. You double text. She gives a dry answer. You offer more care, more effort, more softness. And each time you do, she feels stronger, not loved, not more connected, just in control. And here's the twist that wrecks most men. This whole process rewires your own self-perception. You begin to internalize the rejection. You start believing that you're not enough, that maybe if you become funnier, wealthier, stronger, she'll finally return the affection. But what you're really doing is handing her the emotional reins, begging her, silently, to steer the relationship. Meanwhile, she's not strategizing this on paper. She's not saying, let me manipulate him today. No, it's subconscious. Women are biologically wired to test for strength, for presence, for boundaries. The moment she feels that your world starts revolving around her, that your emotional equilibrium is dictated by her mood, she doesn't feel loved. She feels burdened, and so she retreats. Not to hurt you, but to maintain her own emotional power. This is why she comes back when you pull away, when you go cold, when you reclaim your energy, focus on your purpose, and stop feeding the cycle. She senses the loss, not the loss of love, the loss of control. And that, more than any sweet words you ever said, draws her in again. She mimics love. She mimics care, but what she really wants is the drug she lost, your attention, your obsession, your validation. And so the dance begins again. She approaches. You soften. You begin to believe it's real this time. You open up. You give, she takes. And as soon as she feels the scales tilt back in her favor, she pulls away again. Because the chase, not the connection, is what fed her self-esteem. This loop destroys men, not because they're weak, but because they're unaware. You can't fight what you don't understand. And it doesn't stop with texts or dates. This dynamic bleeds into how women use withholding of intimacy as a form of leverage. Many times, even if she's attracted to you, she'll restrain her own desire. Not because she isn't feeling it, but because withholding sex gives her control. It puts her in the role of gatekeeper, not participant. She'll pretend she's unsure or not ready, even while sending signals of interest. Why? Because if she gives in too easily, she fears you'll stop chasing. And without the chase, she loses power. Men don't understand this because they don't operate this way. Most men give love through presence, through action, through support. But women, especially in today's environment of endless attention and social media, are trained to withhold, to test, to evaluate worth based on how well a man performs under emotional pressure. So how do you break the cycle? You stop validating without reason. You stop chasing without reciprocation. You stop initiating conversations when she's gone cold. You don't play cold to manipulate. You become cold because you remember who you are. Because here's the secret. The moment you become indifferent, you regain power. When your value no longer depends on how she responds to your texts or how much attention she gives you, you become magnetic again. Not because you're trying to be, but because nothing is more attractive than a man who doesn't need. When you stop orbiting her world, you force her to ask, why isn't he orbiting anymore? You interrupt the pattern. And in that silence, she hears the echo of her own manipulation. She sees her reflection. She questions her strategy. And suddenly, the control she once had slips. Most women won't tell you this, but they don't want a man they can control. They want a man who can walk away. A man who has options. A man who has silence sharper than words. A man whose attention must be earned, not assumed. And if she truly loved you, if her intentions were pure, she won't fear your withdrawal. She'll respect it. She'll come closer. She'll drop the games. Because when connection is real, power is irrelevant. But if she was only in it for the control, she'll vanish when the game ends. She'll look for another man to dance with. One who hasn't learned this lesson yet. And that's the hardest part, letting her go. Not because you hate her, but because you refuse to be her source of validation anymore. So the next time you're tempted to double text, to over-explain, to chase after her silence, remember, every step you take toward her without invitation is a step away from your own strength. She may not know she's playing this game, but you do now, and that awareness is your power. So walk away not to punish her, but to protect yourself, to protect your dignity, your time, your emotional energy. Because the man who walks away isn't weak, he's free. And in that freedom lies the ultimate paradox. When you no longer need her, that's when she starts needing you. If you made it to the end, comment below. Power is reclaimed in silence. Like, share, and subscribe. Because truth only serves the ones ready to hear it. And this channel isn't for comfort. It's for clarity.